All right. Practice number 10. 10, 11, 12. Yeah, okay, 9, 10, 11. So remember when we talked about last week that some of the practices are for our humans, some of the practices are for our spirit, and some of them are the integratedness of both. And our last four practices are our spirit side practices. And so one of the things that I want you guys to really do today, and I ask you to do this every time, but I really, really want you to do it even more today because I think this is one of the ones that we jack up probably the most because the cognitive has to be active for this practice to actually manifest. And so choice is my superpower. And it's so funny, you guys, because almost every week we talk about the what we're going to do in Bible study in our coaching group. And sometimes it's one of those that I go, oh my gosh, you guys, it just so happens that we're talking about this in Bible study. Well, then today we're talking, we're coaching, we're doing the thing. And then when we got done and I started just really, okay, like getting ready for Bible study, I was like, oh my gosh, of course. Like these tied in, and I didn't realize it until after I was getting present for today. And so I love that we've already practiced some of this conversation this morning about what choice really is and when it's on the spirit side what it really looks like and what we think it is and how we're and I'm going to use the word deceived because that's what's coming up. But it's not like something outside of us that we're deceived. It's more like we're just unaware. But we think it's one thing, but we're blind, right? And Jesus said, I came to make blind eyes see. And sometimes it is our third eye, our spiritual perception that is what gets to be unblinded, not necessarily just our physical eyes. But Jesus came to make the blindness in how we see the world and how we see ourselves and how we see how it works to be able to see. And so choice is my superpower. But sometimes, so you might think you chose to come on this call, and you may or may not have chosen from the perspective of what we think choice is. Because sometimes we are just so called and so drawn that we couldn't not choose it, right? And not that we couldn't not choose it from a perspective of need to, have to, ought to, should, but because our soul is like, girl, this is where you're supposed to be at, right? And so when we recognize that free will choice is really coming from that spirit side, and we start to look at why am I choosing what I'm choosing? And when we realize that sometimes we're choosing what we choose because we should, we ought to, we need to, we would be rejected or unloved if we didn't. That's recognizing those are not real choices. Obligatory decisions are not choices, they're obligatory decisions. And obligatory might be, I wouldn't be loved if I didn't choose this, right? And so, really understanding that we're going beyond the cognitive choices to really step into that freedom to choose, the freedom to choose either direction. One of my favorite ways to talk about this is with couples. And if you're not coupled right now, put yourself in the position of if you were coupled, How would you feel about the statement I'm about to say? If your significant other isn't free to have sex with whoever they want, they're not really free to only have sex with you. Now, does that mean we say, here's your card, go have sex with anyone we want? No. And this is where we really, really want to start looking at the difference between behavior and motive of the energy from which we are doing the behavior, right? Now, when I was married, I did not want my spouse to go have sex with whoever he wanted, but I practiced that he was free to, because now I'm detaching from him being obligated to only have sex with me. Because guess what? I don't want to feel like an obligation. I don't want him to feel like he's not choosing me. But if he's not free to choose not me, he's actually not choosing me. He's just doing it out of obligation. Well, I'm not allowed to have sex with anybody but Lori, so I guess I'll go have sex with Lori. But when he's actually free to leave, now, here's the difference. If he did decide he wanted to go have sex with other people, my boundary is, well, then you don't get to have sex with me. Like, sorry, not sorry, because I choose monogamy, right? So the boundary is that I don't want to be with somebody who actually physically goes and has sex with other people. Now, again, this might seem confusing because you're like, well, Lori, now he's obligated, otherwise you'll leave. But I'm not worried about his behavior. I'm worried about my attachment to his choices, right? I'm concerned with how I feel. Is he free to do it or not do it, regardless of how it affects me? And then I get to have the boundary for me that if he chooses whatever he wants to freely choose, that then I have a boundary that I function from, not to control him. Because if I said, you can't have sex with anybody else but me or I'm leaving, same words, completely different energy, right? So when we really start to think about that detachment of ought to, have to, should, how we've been programmed, what is right or wrong, and we really start to feel into free will choice, that becomes our superpower. Yeah. And every time I choose from that place, I become more powerful in my God given identity. Yes? So let's look at what our sweet friend Paul says about some decision making. Romans 7:15-20. I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. And if I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good. If you're like me, already I was like, when I first started studying this, I was like, glitch. Wait a minute. So it's good that you don't do what, or that you don't do what you want to do. But this is what it says. We're gonna unpack it. Don't worry, y'all. I agree the law is good. As it is no longer I myself who do it, but it is the sin living in me. For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is in my sinful nature. And don't worry, you guys, we're going to unpack these words because I don't love all of the words because of our religious programming that we're going to undo a little bit of today. Okay? For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good that I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this is what I keep doing. Now, If I do what I do not want to do, it is no longer I who do it, but the sin living in me that does it. Now, right after this, guys, he says, so should I just go sin? And he goes, guys, no, no, that's not the point, right? If you're like, oh, well, I'm allowed to go have sex with whoever I want, even though I agreed to a monogamous relationship, and the Bible says, well, it's not me, so I'm just going to do whatever I want to do. So I'm just going to go have sex with whoever I want because grace abounds. Not what we're talking about, right, guys? We're talking about our heart condition. And that's what Jesus talked about. That's what Jesus taught. He didn't teach behavior, he didn't even teach thought. He taught heart condition. What is your heart condition? The battle between the flesh and the spirit. And we're going to talk a little bit about what all of this means, starting back up to wait a minute, the law is good. If I do what I don't want to do, I have to admit that the law is good. Well, yeah, you guys, because we have to admit that the law of how it works is good. And how it works is on my human side, I am programmed. I don't have free will in my programs. They will replay in like kind. Let's go all the way back to the garden. Everything produces in like kind. So, however I'm programmed, I will produce or reproduce my thoughts, my patterns, and my intentions in like kind. Yeah? So now, guess what? If that's my flesh and that's my programs, when I realize that I can't control that, that's the good news, guys. I can't control the patterns not reproducing in like kind. So now I look at, okay, but the things I want to do, I'm not doing. Well, why is that? And what is this flesh part of me and this other part of me? Okay. So, yeah, that's where surrender comes in. Exactly. And now we're going to talk about what are we actually surrendering into, right? Because sometimes we want to surrender that thing, but we don't realize that we're actually being invited to surrender into something, right? So when it talks about our sinful flesh, okay? Now, what is sinful? Actually, if we look at the origin of the word, it means to miss the mark. What is the mark? Full integration. Full integration with my human, my spirit, and my soul. The human part of me that has laws, the spirit part of me that has laws, and the soul part of me that came to the planet with the plan for me in this incarnation. All three of those are lined up. That is sinless. Okay? It's not about behavior. My behavior does not cause sin. Sin is simply a state of being that is non integrated. That's it. So, the flesh part of me, the human part of me, guess what, guys? Is based on pattern and doesn't have any free choice. Right? So, if I'm functioning and I'm doing the things I don't want to do and I'm not doing the things I want to do, I can stop and go, oh, that's not me. That's the programs that are in me that up until the point of me understanding my true identity in Christ, I think is me. But now that I'm understanding my true identity in Christ, I can recognize those are patterns and not actually me. But do they uh uh what's the word I'm looking for? Do they shape and cause? That's what I Do they shape and cause my thoughts and my behaviors? Yeah. Even sometimes my intention? Yeah, they do. But just like I could take off this shirt, we can take off the old man. The old man, the one that was programmed. The old man that didn't know who I really was, who I came to the planet to be. Okay? So, and guys, so far you're like, okay, Lori, but you haven't really told us about how choices are superpower yet. You're talking about all this because we really have to establish if I think that's me, I can't choose because now I'm living as the one programmed. Yes? And the one programmed can't choose. That's the law, which is why Paul says the law is actually good. Because now, when we look at it from the law's perspective, now I can actually separate from my behavior and my thoughts and recognize that's not me. Well, then who is me? And now I can start looking into the who is me, the one that can actually choose. Yeah. So I have to establish who I'm not in order to start to gravitate who I am because I can't ever know who I am when I am not separated from who I'm not. Yes? Which is why it's very normal in our development of consciousness to move away from what we don't want before we start moving towards what we want cognitively. Yeah. So the fact that we're really aware of what we want and what we don't want, good news. The fact that we're motivated by the pain of what we don't want right now, good news. Right? There's no problem here. This is how consciousness starts to shape and mature. Okay? So now that we've established what we're not, we are not only our flesh. We are not our flesh apart from our spirit, though our consciousness might be functioning that way until we have an awareness that there's two parts of us. And then there's the third element of why we came to the planet. Now that we've established the rules and the laws and what we're not, now we can start to tap into what we are. Okay. So if we look at Deuteronomy 30:19, it says, "This day I call the heavens and the earth to witness against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Now choose life, so that you and your children may live." Okay. So when we talk about death and life, and in this verse, now again, you guys remember, as we shift states of consciousness, we can have 100 different meanings for what life looks like from the perspective of this verse. Okay. We're going to utilize conversation based on what it is that we are learning in relationship to choice is our superpower. Okay. Apart from with when I'm functioning just in my human and I'm not integrating my spirit, that is death. Guess why? Because I'm just functioning in pattern, and pattern functions without life, without choice. And this is why the Bible says we're dead to sin. We're dead to certain things. When we become born again, we are dead to those things. Well, why? Because death has a lot of different meanings: spiritual death, physical death, uh, uh, perception death, right? As I mature into a different state of consciousness and become something else, I have to be dead to an old way of being. I die to my old identity. And Paul says, how often do I die? Once, twice, three times? Daily. I die daily because I am becoming something new every day. Right? A lot of times in our religious or church background, we think that being born again is a one-time event. Well, I met Jesus, I asked him into my heart, and I got born again. I would encourage you, get born again. Get born again again. Get born again again again. Do it again, get born again. Because this is the forever unfolding of life and life more abundant, right? Because I'm dying more and more every day so that I can become alive more and more every day. This is the abundant life. Abundant not being money or possessions, or it's the abundance of life. And the more life I allow myself to allow to be indwelled in me, the more freedom, the more experience I get to feel. Okay, so this says, I set before you life and death. Death being the old patterns, the things that just play out, the loops, the over and over again, the separation from you and you, the separation from you and God. Life being life and life more abundant, right? And I set before you today. And then guess what? Guess what God will do tomorrow? I set before you today. And guess what? Guess what God will do tomorrow? He'll set before you today. Sometimes today is this 5 minutes. Sometimes today is this 6 or 7 seconds. I'm so grateful that I get the opportunity over and over and over and over, and that God puts that opportunity in front of me over and over and over and over. And really, you guys, now what is he asking us to die to? Well, exactly what Paul just said. That thing that you think you are, the one that does the thing that you don't want to do, that's death. Let that go. Choose life. What is life? I don't know what I don't know. I don't know. What if we don't even know what life is? But we trust that life is unfolding for us, in us, through us, as us. Right? What if we don't have to know exactly what's coming tomorrow? But if we trust a God that loves us, protects us, provides for us, has a plan for us, a plan that's good, a plan to prosper us, then do we really have to know all the details to know what life is? Or can we surrender into the one that's alive that will now be guided into tomorrow and the next day? Because, guys, I don't know if I talked about this, and this is a sorry, not sorry. And Catherine, D, and Bridget, feel free to very, very largely give head nods or shakes so that everybody is on board. Okay. To the right of me is my garage door. To the left of me is my sink and my cupboards. Do I have a choice if I go to the garage door or to the sink or the cupboard? No, I don't have a choice if I go to the door or the cupboard. Guess what? I have choice to either turn to the right or turn to the left. Because when I turn to the right, the inevitability is the door. When I turn to the left, the inevitability is the sink. I don't actually choose where I'm going. I choose which direction I look. And when you guys, it's so simple as life or death, what do I choose? Oh, I don't have to know what's after that. I can't know what's after that. All I know is what direction am I going to focus? Am I going to focus on God being good? Am I going to focus on the fact that I'm loved? Am I going to focus on the fact that I'm already in right standing? Am I going to focus on the fact that God has good plans for me? Am I going to focus on the fact that before the foundations of the earth, God already knew the good works I would do? Or am I going to focus on, yeah, but in the past, this happened. Yeah, but I know this is how that person's going to respond. Yeah, but if I don't have enough money, I'll end up homeless. Yeah, but programs, patterns, what somebody else told you was true, how you experienced life before you had choice. The only choice you have is what direction you are going to focus on, a good God or on your programs and what you think you know. Yeah? It's the only choice you really have. And everything else takes care of itself after that. Everything. So cool, right? Joshua 24:15. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourself this day whom you serve. But for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Now, remember, guys, we get to use the word Lord and replace it with law because the law is always happening exactly the way that the law will always function. That is what we can trust, the law, right? So I love, here's the thing. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, choose that. Fuck it up. Go ahead. Because guess what? You can't thwart the law. You can't thwart why you came to the planet. You can't thwart the plans of God. So, guess what? If today you're like, you know what? I don't know if I told you guys this story here, but when I first started studying manifestation and I was around a lot of really happy people and a lot of people who were like doing a lot of really cool things in the world and like changing lives and traveling the world and doing all these really cool things. And then in my church, I saw a lot of dysfunction and like sadness and addiction and right. And I didn't see a lot of those things over here in the manifestation people. So I was like, okay, God, this seems very undesirable to me right now. Right. And I'm like, are you real? Because these people say that you don't exist. Yet they're living in a place of happiness and peace and prosperity and they're having joy and they're in community together and they're not judging anyone. So are you real? And God said, well, do you want to not believe in me? And I said, it sure would be a lot easier if I didn't, because I feel like I have to please you. I feel like I have to do it your way. I feel like I have to obey. And he goes, cool, don't believe in me. I'm like, cool, then I don't believe in you. And he was like, cool. And for like 6 months, you guys, I opted to not pay any attention to God. I did whatever I wanted to do, whenever I wanted to do it. I never considered like, is this your will, God? Okay, God, please. I I practiced full godless manifestation tools. And I had so much, I gained so much freedom and I changed so many perspectives and like there was so much freedom in a lot of my old programs and patterns and beliefs. But at the end of 6 months, that's all it took me, 6 months. I went, okay, like whether you're real or not is less of an issue. I miss relationship. I miss talking to you. I miss the intimacy that we had because in the manifestation apart from God stuff, I had physical things that were manifesting in my life, but I felt very alone. And so when I said, hey, God, I miss you, he goes, do you want me to be real again? I go, yeah. He goes, okay, I'm real again. Guys, the Bible gives us permission. If you don't think it's desirable, go choose it. Who cares? Because if you're supposed to be in relationship with something called God, you will be. But remember, an atheist doesn't wake up going, I think I'm going to go hate people. They want to love just as much as the God-fearing people want to love. So let's not get caught up in our labels and our pre-programmed God is the only answer, because God doesn't care what you call him. Love is the energy that manifests in our being that then produces a life of life and life more abundant, right? I just happen to call it God. I just happen to want that kind of like wordage, verbiage, label. But if somebody comes to you, I had a client that had a lot of church abuse, a lot of church hurt. And she goes, I can't do the God thing. I said, cool. We need something so that we know when we're talking about the same thing, and we'll call it love, but let's name love because even the word love is bastardized. So let's just call it something. And she goes, well, I could call it Harry. I go, sweet. Let's call it Harry. So when I talked about Harry, if you were asking me, I would have said God, but you weren't asking me. It was my client that needed a not the God word. So we called it Harry. And then probably a year into working together, she's like, I think I could call it God. I go, you don't have to, because that means nothing. She goes, yeah, and I still want to. Cool. Let's call it whatever, right? Because God doesn't care. Now, we in this container right now, as we're talking, we have a understanding that we collectively call it God. Still lots of misunderstandings behind it, but we agree on that thing as the word God. Yeah. But ultimately, we know if there's somebody standing up in the pulpit saying, God hates you, God hates you because XYZ, there is something in our body that goes, not the God I serve. That, mm-mm, mm-mm. So, regardless of the word that anyone uses, we can feel based on our soul's path and destiny what resonates for us. Yeah. We can't thwart the plans of God. We can't get away from whatever we came to the planet to experience. And God knows that and loves us so much that God says, you want to not choose me? Cool. Don't choose me. Because God knew that I'd be back. God knew how much I desired relationship with him. So he wasn't worried about letting me live apart from him for however long, because he knew I'd miss him, knew what he was doing, right? So there was no fretting. God wasn't up there going, oh, I hope Lori changes her mind. She needs to come back to me so she can go to heaven. God wasn't saying that. That's another one of those things that we bastardize. Oh, so and so has to be saved. Our soul has free will. Our soul knows the plan. Our soul knows the path. Yeah. So, choice being our superpower is when we freely choose. I freely chose to say, I don't want to believe in you, God. I freely chose it. And it created a lot of superpowerness inside of me. I changed a lot. And then I chose freely to say, oh, I want to be in relationship. Because before I chose not to be in relationship, there was a lot of obligatory behavior. There was a lot of, I should do this. I need to be obedient. Oh, God, am I praying right? There was a lot of victim energy between me and God. But as soon as I was like, I freely choose to have sex with whoever I want, guess who I wanted to come back to? Because guess what? God didn't try to make me obey or make me stay in relationship with him. God said, girl, you are free, free. And then I freely saw how much what I really desired was relationship. Yeah. So when we choose from that free place, it creates power inside of us. If you make a choice and you feel disempowered, chances are you chose through obligation. You chose through a past pattern of, I need to choose this in order to be accepted or loved. But if you freely choose, you will feel a rush of power. You will know in your body that was a free choice. Because the law is choice is my superpower. You can't deny when you've chosen freely. So now it's not anymore about the choice, but about how did I feel right after that choice? And now I can know, was that a free choice or not a free choice? Right? So now we take choice is my superpower and we invert it to say, after I chose, did I feel empowered or disempowered? Well, that was the indicator of, did I choose from an old pattern, the dead part of me, the part of me that is my sin nature, apart from integration, or did I choose from integration where I'm free and already in right standing? Yeah. And we get better and better and better. And then we choose more and more in alignment with the fullness of us and less based on patterns. Yeah. More based on our design, less based on our patterns. All right, let me stop the recording.